Hey guys.
Hi.
We're going to take just a couple seconds as people are joining in. We're going to get to the conversation in a minute, but we have a little news. My friend Paul here, got married over the weekend. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a lovely ceremony.
So far, so good.
Yeah, hopefully. But he rushed back from his honeymoon just so we could do this video.
Yeah.
Not really.
Because it's fun.
Yeah.
Ish.
In other news, I got a really bad sunburn yesterday. So.
Why? Where were you?
I guess forgot how the sun works. I took a walk, a really long walk, and it was like June gloom.
Yeah. Which kills you.
Right. It feels like there's no sun. It's like kind of cold, and then 2 hours later. Anyway.
And I'm going with casual today.
You are.
Casual.
I know. You're super casual.
It's the new me.
It is the new you.
It's the rushing me that forgot to get a striped shirt.
Because you have nothing going on.
Right. Nothing going on.
3 children, and yeah. Thanks for joining us. I am Kristen Howerton. I blog at Rage Against the Minivan.
And I'm Paul Martin. I blog at Paulo Sophia.
So I'm a Democrat, and Paul is a Republican, and we do a weekly chat where we talk about the election and try to keep a civil conversation between 2 opposing sides. So what are we talking about today, Paul?
Well, one of the things we're going to talk about is why we are what we are. Why are you a Democrat? Why am I a Republican?
Yes.
And I think for me, I think the first thing I would want to say is, as a Democrat, you don't agree with everything that the Democratic platform is always about. There's some Democrats that you disagree with, and some policies that you don't necessarily embrace. And that's definitely true for me as a Republican.
Well, let me say, though, on that note, I do think that is one of the issues in American politics, because I think there are a lot of people for whom the party platform is their platform.
Yeah.
They really are tunnel vision, whatever, I'm a Republican, therefore,
Yeah.
I think it takes some nuance and maybe higher level thinking to go, okay, I'm a Democrat, but I don't fall in line with every single aspect.
Yeah, and you definitely have that quality. I certainly have that quality, which in the geographical area that I live, amongst many evangelical Christians that I'm friends with, it's rare to have a Republican saying, well, I'm not so sure about ABC.
I think differently about immigration or...
Yeah, but for me, I think what my affiliation with the Republican Party ultimately comes down to, and I know this, people are going to have challenge this, but ultimately the message of I am a human agent and I'm responsible for my life, that entitlements ultimately are not going to help me dig deep into my well, my reservoir of work, knowledge, and I think generally speaking, the Republican Party on that level wants to say to people, we're not socialists, we're not communists. Right. You have to get out there. A few years ago, or about 10 years ago, I was working. We bought this house. We were, my ex-wife was raising our children. She wasn't working. And our money situation was very tight. And it dawned on me one day as we were bitching about how, we wanted to do a remodel, that we were making a choice to live here in this actual neighborhood.
Yeah.
And you could, I found myself getting in this kind of victim-y mood, but I realized, wait, I can move to 1,000 different cities in this country where economically, that's taking responsibility. The alternative would be complaining. That's a long answer, but...
Yeah. Well, and I think, I talked about this on my blog this week, actually, because I talked a little bit about why I'm a socialist. But, I think what it really boils down to is not that we have, parties where someone is horrible and the other side is not horrible. Really what you have is a continuum between individualistic and collectivist.
Yeah.
And where you would say, I'm a Republican because I'm more individualistic. Like, I think every person should be responsible for themselves.
Right.
On that continuum, I would be over here on the collectivist side. Yeah. I would say I think society does better when everyone's sort of working together, pooling resources somewhat. Now, I don't think you pool all your resources, obviously. And it's funny because as I posted about this yesterday, someone said, like, well, if everyone gets equal, who's going to try harder? I don't think everyone gets equal. I think if you work harder, you have more money. But I think for me, society is better and more civil when everyone's basic needs are covered. Healthcare, education, which at the end of the day, I know you believe in some ways. I mean, I'm sure you still believe in public education for elementary school, and
Yeah, yeah,
we've all got some socialist tendencies.
yeah.
But mine would swing much broader, and
Right.
the umbrella would be much wider in the socialist, things that I think should be offered to a citizen in this country.
Yeah, and to me, the devil's in the detail of it. I mean, that's a very
Yeah.
general theory that I threw out there. Like, basically, people should be responsible for themselves.
Right.
But the devil is in how does that work?
Right.
And yeah, of course, public education. I lived in England with national health care, and I thought it worked.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm more nuanced.
Yeah.
Where I would think, if a child has cancer and the dad gets laid off and the child loses his medical insurance, that child should be able to have medical insurance.
Yeah.
With a pre-existing condition.
Yeah.
And so, this could be a very long conversation that can go on for a long time, but I think generally, as a father, I raise my children to suck it up. Life's hard. Ultimately, you have to get out there and work. And so, in the same way I apply that pedagogy to my kids, I think ultimately, that's a better message for a society than let's pool everything and we're all on a level playing field. And I know we can go on and on.
Although I would tell my kids the same message: work hard and suck it up. And I do myself, but in terms of how that broadly affects people. I also want to clarify, I know sometimes I'll refer to myself as a socialist and sometimes I'll refer to myself as a Democrat.
Right.
I'm a socialist first. I consider myself a socialist first. There's not a really contending socialist party that has a good chance in elections, and so therefore I identify with the Democratic Party because they have more socialist leanings. Although it's interesting that the current second runner is Bernie Sanders, who is a socialist. So that can fall under that Democrat Party umbrella.
Right.
But I definitely consider myself more of a socialist than a Democrat.
It's certainly much closer than any of the Republicans that
Very much so.
just ran. And it'd be fun to talk more about those details down the
I
road.
know,
But we have an election.
I know, so primaries, we both live in California. It's our primary today. But interestingly enough, last night the Associated Press called it for Hillary.
Right.
Which I'm not sure what gives them the
Right.
authority to call it.
Yeah.
I think it's still based a bit on conjecture and what we're assuming that the Electoral College is going to do. It's a little frustrating too. I mean, for me as a California resident, to have that called like the night before you're going to vote.
Right. And I don't even understand the complexities of. I mean, it's not in the headlines. If Sanders wins tonight, she might have, with the proportional vote that she'll get, clinch the nomination. But the Sanders thorn in her side it's massive, and apparently he's now saying that he's going to continue, and I don't understand.
Well, why wouldn't he continue? I mean, I think he is generating excitement and a change in philosophy for a lot of people. Again, I will vote for Hillary if it comes down to Trump versus Hillary. But I don't believe that Bernie is really pulling people away from Hillary because he's not running a smear campaign against her in the least.
Right, no, he's not.
I think
no, he's not. Not a smear campaign.
I think most. I mean, we're hearing all the stories of the Bernie or bust. But most Bernie fans I know will swing over to Hillary's side when it comes down to Trump.
Yeah, but I just wonder why. Yeah, I just don't understand why. I mean, to me, if I put a Democratic strategist hat on, which I'm not, I would say Bernie. I guess that's what's probably going to happen. He's going to lose tonight. Ultimately, she's going to get the delegates that she needs, and then he will unite behind her. But I would want to say to Bernie, if we're going to beat Trump, not only do you have to endorse her, you have to speak in the clearest language to all of your supporters in every possible medium that you can. That we, a vote for, Hillary is a vote for me, essentially. And I don't see him doing that, and it confuses me.
I think he will.
Okay.
I feel confident he will. I think right now he's still running a campaign and hoping against hope that he could win. Yeah. But I think when it's clear that he is not, I think he will throw his support to Hillary, and I think that's a part of the reason he has not been nasty towards her. I think that he's a civil and reasonable person. Okay, so we have one little Trump thing to talk about, which we can't gloss over, is his comment about the judge.
And this continues, and
So this was a comment that he made in regards to a judge presiding over the case about Trump University.
right,
The judge is a federally elected judge, correct?
yeah, yeah,
And he's a Mexican American.
yeah,
American. And Trump suggested that he's biased, which was an interesting thing for him to say. He's saying he's biased because of the comments I've made about Mexican Americans, which I feel like is an admission of guilt in terms of his own racism.
yeah. Well, I mean, Paul Ryan today said what Trump said is textbook racism.
Correct.
And what is befuddling to people is, I mean, everyone did. Mitch McConnell did. Lindsey Graham. I mean, these people are saying this is textbook racism. You're talking about a judge based on his ethnicity.
Right.
That is racism.
And making assumptions of his behavior based on his race.
Right. And there are nuances, and I won't go into them. But I heard Trump say because he's Mexican,
Right.
not because he was part of an organization
Right.
that, La Raza, which is a whole other side issue. But there's just no question in my mind that this is strategic. Why else would he be saying these things if he didn't think it would help him win the nomination
So you
for
think
presidency?
being a racist is going to help him win?
Well, why?
That's a
Okay,
strategy.
let's just think really
Scary.
simply here. He's trying to win.
Yeah.
He's trying to beat Hillary.
Yeah.
He's a very smart man, shrewd and clever, I should say.
He's shrewd.
He's shrewd and shrewd. If it's not going to help him become president, why would he say it? There would seem to be no other rationale besides him thinking it could help him.
Yeah.
Which puts our country in a very,
It's really scary.
I think it's frightening. And I was in some social media chats today with one Republican in particular, and again, there's just this kind of glazed over.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he could be biased because Trump talked about building a wall and he's Mexican. But come on, people, if that's true, then you have to say the same thing about white judges.
Yeah.
Are white judges therefore
Right.
prejudiced against
Absolutely.
African American and Mexican people of color?
Right.
I mean, if you're going to use the argument that a Mexican is necessarily
Oh,
going to
right.
have a bias, well, therefore every white judge
Yeah.
is as well. And then Trump went on to say a Muslim judge would also be biased. Therefore, every Christian judge is going to be
Right.
biased against a Mormon or
Well, he's
against a
admitting
Jew.
that he's got a race problem, is what he's doing.
And millions upon millions of fellow Christian brothers and sisters of mine seem to have no problem with it.
Yeah, which is frightening. So today's an interesting day in California for Republicans because there's really, I mean, if you're not a Trump supporter, what are Republicans doing today with their ballot when their only primary option is?
It's the never Hillary vote for, by not voting for Trump, you're voting for Hillary. So I'm seeing people I never imagined would support Trump supporting Trump. I mean, Paul Ryan, who is someone I highly respect, is saying we'd be better off with Trump as a president in terms of our platform than we would with Hillary.
I will say though that I am seeing more and more Christians saying I would rather vote for Hillary. In fact, the Gospel Coalition, which is an extremely conservative organization, has now written 2 blog posts about, and the term they used I thought was interesting. I'd rather vote for a known evil than an unpredictable evil.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think we're seeing the tide switch a little
Wait, hold on.
bit.
I'd rather vote for a known evil.
Hillary being a known evil versus an unpredictable evil.
Oh, I see.
Being
Okay.
Trump, who's just a wild card.
I get that, and that makes sense to me. But what's even more bizarre to me is someone was saying to me today, well, how could you vote for a felon? Well, she's not a felon. She has allegations against her,
Right.
but if we're talking about actual facts, the email issue of Benghazi, these are not facts.
Right.
These are, they're allegations, and
Right.
these things haven't even reached a court yet. And
Right.
so, yeah, I mean, maybe, but I don't know. If we're talking about actual knowledge,
Right.
it looks shady for sure. But Trump just said that a Mexican, or he
Right.
made fun of a handicapped man. Like,
Yeah.
how are we picking and choosing our morality these
I know.
days? That's what baffles me. He
I know.
made fun on stage, running for president, of a handicapped man, including the gestures.
I know.
And where is the outrage of that? Like, I don't know anybody making fun of handicapped people.
I
And we have
know.
someone running for president that's doing it. And
I know.
again, I'm speaking specifically to Christians, just
Doesn't fit.
Doesn't to me.
Nope. No. All right, what do you think is going to happen tonight?
Well, I think it'll be, I mean, with the Democrats, it seems like it's a flip of a coin,
Yeah.
but there's a proportional amount of delegates that are going to be allocated, and Hillary will, I mean, unless there's something that the polls aren't showing, she'll prevail, and it'll be Trump versus Hillary.
Still holding out for Bernie. Come on, California.
Hey, these polls have been wrong.
Yeah,
California's different. It's progressive. So.
Yeah, but I know. Yeah, we'll see. All right, well, we'll post this up on our blog. We'd love to hear your comments, and we'll be back next week.